somebody adds 5 rupees to every travel bill. Is that a fraud? And where does it end? The other interesting thing that I see in this act is the penalties. There are two kinds of penalties, one on the entity and one on the officer in default. The entity obviously can't be imprisoned, so it's just a fine. And if it's an officer in default, there's a financial penalty and an imprisonment. This act is very funny, and I'm actually in the process of tabulating. All your penalties read from 500 to 50,000, 50,000 to 5 lakhs. Where is the discretion? Now, does this discretion throw up what is a common Indian phenomenon of bias by somebody sitting in a government office? This act is actually going to throw up a lot of situations for negotiations and compromise that we'll all have to watch out for. And lastly, I'd just like to add this. I see that this is going to actually shake up our auditing profession a little bit. Just like you have the big fours, I think this act will see the emergence of another league of 100 firms, which unlike the big four may have common methodologies. And I think the rotations will soon start to happen. And I feel this is a very good way for the profession to move forward without networking or mergers, but with common infrastructure backend in terms of methodology. And as Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. And as we foray ahead into this new millennium with this very new Companies Act, all I can say is we need to be very, very empowered to be able to handle this, whether it's in terms of a risk or an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Definitely a very, very captivating technical session. Let me start the question on behalf of the participants. Madam, the first question, the appointment of auditors, they say it's for a block of 5 years, and there is a necessity of ratification of that audit appointment every year. That means we are back to square one, back to 1956?
Yeah, taken and read with the fact that a notice can be received to appoint any other person, you could be back to square one. And then what is the sanctity of the 5-year term? Makes no meaning. Literally, yes. You can get appointed for 6 years, but you have to make sure that that ratification happens every year.
So that we are in the same.
Not really, because the expectation is that once you are appointed for a period of 5 years, unless something untoward happens, at least the appointment is assured for 5 years. Look at it from this angle, that somebody has to take up an audit and scale up their technical skills or the particular industry expertise. At least they are assured for a term of 5 years, unless something really goes wrong. That is the meaning. And a ratification is not an approval. So there is a distinction that ratification would mean it has a buy-in from the shareholders when they've already appointed.
No, I am thinking of an extreme. Will there be a possibility of change in auditors
yes,
in the block of 5 years?
Yes, and that is why they have put in the procedure, for removal and for sending notices, and that's why that is also perceived.
Now there is a 5-year gap. Is it? There is a 5-year, cooling period. Now, Institute of Chartered Accountants have been advocating the concept of networking. Maybe this 5-year cooling period, does it encourage networking with fellow professionals, where firm A will be there for 5 years, maybe a block of 10 years, and then a cooling period 5 years again they can come back. So my networking firm, officially not a networking firm.
What you're talking about is cartelization, not an official network. So that's why I asked that question. Will it lead to cartelization? Because Sri Priya was talking about firms coming together. It is bound to happen, because unless you have scale and size, you will not be able to survive in this regime wherein the expectations are high. You are seen as the only conscience keeper of the corporate community, not the directors. You are expected to keep the conscience. Even the auto driver knows Satyam scandal today, thanks to all the multi-channels, everything. You see the way the media picks up any small news item, and the first question is on the auditors. So there is so much of awareness, and it is bound to happen unless you have cartelization, unless you come together, unless you network. Survival of small practices could be a challenge. You're right.
How about, madam, the professional indemnity insurance concept picking up, because the challenge is the fees has to be refunded first, and any liability claimed by any person aggrieved and on the dependability of the auditor's report.
Professional indemnity insurance, yes, it is expected to go up, but how far we would draw lessons and bring out those kind of policies which would meet the Indian environment requirement could be a challenge to insurance companies. I remember when we were asked by our global office to see whether we are having insurance. I remember I was an article clerk at that time. From 10 lakhs for a professional insurance, to get insurance companies to raise that amount to 25 lakhs was a challenge at that point. So today, global countries, global firms operating in other countries have huge professional indemnity insurance, and such kind of sophisticated products have not even come out to the open market to protect professionals in this country. So it would be a huge cost, and how are we going to pay?
Madam, cost to whom, madam?
Cost to the firm.
So audit cost also should go up.
Yes, sir.
So we have
audit
to pass
cost
on.
should even otherwise go up, because your scope has increased, your responsibilities and risk has increased. At least we need to create a mindset that this profession has a lot of risk, and therefore they need to be protected. If you want treatment at a hospital which has high standards, you are willing to pay that amount because it is life. Whereas when it comes to an audit, if you want those high standards, you want a competitive bid. So who is to bear those costs? Yes, Raju, you're right.
In fact, Raju, I'd just like to add in, now that she mentioned hospitals, I know surgeons who perform 9-10 surgeries a day. But we have a limit, we say you can do only 20 audits. So in a year, and of which only 10 can be public companies. So you can't do more than 10. So look at the dichotomy. I mean, is a human life more valuable than a corporate balance sheet, or so?
A corporate balance sheet is more valuable than life.
We fortunately share a common day with the medical profession, but if they make mistakes because they have got a declaration signed before they get into the theatre, they are protected. They would first get all the signatures from the people even before they start their work, whereas we auditors have to run around people to get even representations and appointment letters. Okay.
Correct, madam. July 1st is Doctor's Day.
But they have better indemnity than us.
Nice.
Take the insurance, how far we are going to succeed in getting the insurance amount is a big question.
Sir, I'd like to add something to this. The professional indemnity insurance as applicable anywhere outside India would involve a detailed scrutiny. Just like your insurance claims, you should have confirmed with the standards, you should have followed the processes. Let me tell you, whenever we do training for our people, one of the core factors we stress is unless you do this, you will not get indemnity, you will not be protected. So there are so many compliances to follow to try and at least reach the doorstep of the insurance company's requirements, even in professional indemnity insurance.
One question regarding the person you mentioned, whether it includes income tax department and the service tax department also, where the department has not got the money.
You are talking about proceedings?
With respect to revision?
Yeah.
With respect to revision?
No, with respect to this, like any person can claim the company, anybody has lost, whether the department also is included, supposing there is a concealment.
Yes.
And another question is whether joint audit is included in the limit of 20.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I mean, it is not said that it is excluded. So, unless one of the clarifications come out from the rules which would take a frame, in fact, there is not even a discussion whether it is included in the limit. A joint, see, you could draw reference from the standards wherein a joint audit, both auditors are equally responsible. So, it is covered in your limit. That is the immediate indirect reference I could think about.
In the case of frauds, you mentioned that the auditors are having more risk as per the Companies Act, but it is also was mentioned that the CFOs and the directors are also equally responsible, and they also have the perceived risks, right?
Yes, because if you look at 447, it is applicable to the officers under the Companies Act, including company secretary. The only thing is you have one step further. Company secretary, cost accountant and auditor should report immediately to central government. Whereas the directors and others, unless it comes to their notice through the audit committee, then they examine, then they can report. You have to do it first. So you have a risk in terms of timing and in terms of your judgment. And imagine an intent to deceive. Does it mean if somebody shares emails of private information by which a third party can benefit, an auditor and a company secretary are responsible? How can you control? What is fraud? First of all, fraud definition itself, which is taken from general parlance in this act, which has come out as a pronounced section itself, needs to be recodified. And unfortunately, this has not caught the light of both industry and all professionals to make a hue and cry.
Ma'am, I just have a small question. Auditor is actually restricted from doing the prescribed services. Can a relative of such an auditor be engaged when that
No.
is restricted?
No. You will get disqualified if you are under the relative definition. Yes.
And
See, look at the spirit of this whole thing. Why these services are proscribed? Because why a rotation? The whole thing is on independence, dear. So the basic thing is on independence. So if you look at it from an independence angle, you will not have these doubts at all. And there is no way you can cut across the concept of independence anywhere.
And just one more question, ma'am. We were talking about cartelization. Actually, there are laws in India restricting such cartelization. So, can anybody file a suit against such a situation?
It doesn't apply strictly to professionals, the Cartelization Act, but the point is the spirit would be you could have an informal arrangement, nobody would stop you. But the spirit is that people have to come together. There is no choice. There is no question of survival unless you have the benefit of being large. Leave alone the question of big or for small or big 4 or big 6, that is lost. The question is whether you have the combined strength to meet today's level playing. That's what is important. To protect the profession, not for anything else.
Thank you.
And you know, sort of given our past history, we never push fees up to be accused of cartelization. We only bring it down. And you know, if you're done, you know, there's a little quote in Hamlet. It says, which is very famous because it got quoted by Pranab Mukherjee. I think it would have been very appropriate at the introduction of the New Companies Act. He said, I must be cruel to be kind. And he left it there. Actually, the second part of the quote is, the bad is here, the worst still to come. So it's like, you know, in Tamil you say, na na niya. So at the end of 10 years, we'll have to see whether we'll be there or the act will be there. But one of the two, I do see some changes, you know, eventually happening because it'll be very difficult to administer as well. Or it'll get diluted.
Now to add to Sri Priya, if you don't like something, change it. But if you can't change it, change the way you think about it. We become the change.
Madam, an auditor is permitted to perform audit of 20 companies. Consider the case of small auditors and small companies, wherein normally the AGMs will be fixed only during the fag end of September, and he is mandated to attend the board AGM. What happens if, due to very legitimate reasons, he is not able to attend the AGM? Does the auditor get punished, or does the AGM get invalidated?
Neither. because as long as you have a representative to attend, it is not going to punish anybody if you don't attend the AGM. The question is your appointment of more than 20. You can't be an auditor of more than 20 companies. Your 224, your current section 224 limit should be 20. That's it. The attendance at the AGM is compulsory, but you can have valid reasons for not attending, can be explained. I don't think that is so much of a draconian requirement as you are crossing the limits. If you relate attendance to limits, that's my answer.
Madam, in case of demerger, court approved the scheme and demerged company resulting companies are required to recast the financial statements from the appointed date. If suppose the appointed date falls in the previous financial year, for which the rotated auditor is interested, will that rotated auditor take the responsibility how he would rely the recast and all?
So you're talking about a situation wherein the auditor becomes an interested party after the demerger, is it? How? If there is a demerger, he's already been the auditor of the parent company when he would not have been